People look at the Ford Pinto as the dark stain on Ford's past. However, I feel there's a vehicle that eclipsed it, and by a long shot.
You're okay.
The vehicle we're going to cover today had an inherent danger baked into its design. Ford executives were aware of this danger, yet they released it to the buying public anyway. In today's video, we're going to look at the Ford Bronco II, why it was an epic disaster, and why it didn't need to be.
It's the call of the wild, and Ford answers with Bronco II, a real kick in four-wheeling. The Bronco II takes rough terrain and snow in stride with four-wheel drive. Inside, there's around-town comfort for four and split-fold seats for extra cargo. And Bronco II's just the right size for easy maneuvering in tight places. Plus, V6 power no competitor can touch. See the Ford Bronco II. It's a brand new kick.
The date is sometime 1983. I am a senior in high school and SUVs are just beginning to become popular. The Jeep Cherokee, Toyota's 4Runner, and the Chevy S10 Blazer were brand new vehicles. Ford was behind the curve on the SUV craze, but it was ready to launch its own compact two-door off-roader, the 1984 Bronco II. Ford wasn't thinking about creating an SUV as we know them today. They wanted to downsize the traditional four-wheel drive truck, like the full-size Bronco but smaller. The Bronco II was based on a pickup truck that was being newly introduced as well, the Ford Ranger, and it was designed to be as tough as a truck, much like the original Bronco. It came as no surprise when Ford chose to name this new vehicle the Bronco II. The Bronco II's future looked great. Motor Trend loved the Bronco II. It suggested the XLT trim level stood for excellent little truck. MotorWeek praised the Bronco II, saying there isn't much this vehicle can't do. In fairness to MotorWeek, they did note the tendency of the brakes to lock up in emergency situations, but also noted this was typical for vehicles in this class. The one thing that was notably absent from MotorWeek's review was the slalom test. Had they performed these tests, the results may have been very different. You see, the Bronco II had a very high potential for rolling over. Ford allegedly knew this at the time they released the Bronco II to the buying public. Long before the Ford Bronco II went on sale, Ford was warned of potential rollover issues. Engineers calculated the Bronco II Stability Index. This is a calculation based on the center of gravity and the vehicle's track width. Engineers found the Bronco II rollover risk was significantly higher than that of the competing Chevy S10 Blazer. During Ford's own testing, the Bronco II rolled over multiple times. Ford engineers abandoned critical road tests with the Bronco II because these safety tests were too dangerous for their test drivers. In safety tests at speeds as slow as 30 miles per hour, the Bronco II repeatedly tipped up on its protective outriggers. This was clear proof that the vehicles were very likely to roll over in the hands of the driving public. Engineers suggested fixes, most of which would have delayed the launch and could have cut into the Bronco II's profitability. Major improvements would have required modifications to the Ranger platform, as they would have to widen the track 3 to 4 inches. Company executives vetoed nearly all these options and chose instead to release a higher ratio power steering gear, which engineers labeled as a small improvement. In anticipation of rollover litigation, Ford's Office of General Counsel gathered more than 100 critical engineering documents before the production of the Bronco II and ordered the engineers to sanitize them. Ultimately, many key documents disappeared prior to the production of the first Bronco II. Eventually, the public would become aware of the Bronco II's tendency to go bottoms up. In 1989, Consumer Reports gave the Bronco II its avoid rating due to its tendency to tip over in emergency maneuvers, even at relatively low speeds. The rear-wheel drive version of the Bronco II proved to be the biggest problem, according to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. The rear-wheel drive Bronco II's rollover-related death rate between 1986 and 1990 was 3.78 fatalities per 10,000 vehicles, compared to 1.74 for the four-wheel drive Bronco II, and the 1.11 for the Suzuki Samurai, which was put out of existence due to this issue. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opened an investigation into the Bronco II. The IIHS said 88% of fatalities in Bronco IIs, either two or four-wheel drive, were involved in a rollover crash. The NHTSA declined to issue a recall, determining the rollover rate wasn't significantly greater than other similar SUVs. However, the key documents that were sanitized were not disclosed to the NHTSA during the investigation. Ford said that it didn't notice that the NHTSA asked for Bronco II development documents. By the time of these investigations, Ford was preparing to roll out the Bronco II's replacement, and given the bad press, it already decided on a new name, the Explorer. Now, it's worth noting here that the Explorer Stability Index was only slightly better than that of the Bronco II, and it too would run into its own rollover issues. However, that's a story for another day. Figures on the death toll of the Bronco II vary. Estimates range from as few as 260 to as many as 800 people were killed in Bronco II rollover accidents. It had gotten so bad that the Geico insurance company refused to write policies for the Bronco II. It wasn't long before lawsuits began to pile up. The New York Times claimed Ford faced a total of $742 million in just 13 lawsuits. In 2001, Time magazine reported that Ford spent a total of $2.4 billion in damage settlements related to the Bronco II. This includes one agreement that involved giving between $100 and $300 to 480,000 Bronco II owners for modifications and repairs. Ford was still settling Bronco II related lawsuits as late as 2012. The entire time, Ford continued to insist that the Bronco II was not inherently defective and that any vehicle can roll over under the right or wrong circumstances. I'm still a fan of Ford Motor Company and a lot of their products. However, when a company puts profits ahead of people in this manner, they can't simply be allowed to forget it happened. Ford's executives ignored their engineers. They ignored their own test results. When their legal team was advised of the situation, instead of saying this is morally wrong, they decided to try to whitewash the entire situation.
Please disperse. There's nothing for you to see here. Keep moving.
And that is why the Bronco II, in my opinion, is the worst vehicle that Ford ever put on the American roadways. This was much worse than the Pinto. The Pinto was rushed to development. Ford was unaware of the bumper bolt that could puncture the car's fuel tank and ultimately cause a fire. When it was discovered, Ford tried to deny it, but eventually they capitulated and issued a recall. That was after a lot of bad press and some serious lawsuits. I made a video about the Pinto. I get into all the different models and the options that were available. And of course, we have to get into the fires as well. You can take a look at that video. It's right over here. It's one of my early videos. So, please be easy in the comments section. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll see you.